snowball through tomorrow and in the west on Thursday. Further east mostly it's light winds, so again just a lot of cloud. Most places dry and temperatures a touch above average. Where we see some sunshine there, those temperatures climbing into the mid-teens. Bye for now.
We'll see a cold snap, which will quickly develop into a warm front. Boxed Boiler Repairs, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're giving you the chance to win everything you need to celebrate the festivities. There's £20,025 in tax-free cash. There's £5,000 to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £500 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag. We'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
It's Patrick Christys tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Court cases.
A presidential dropout.
Assassination attempts.
This has been a US election like no other.
And if the polls are correct, it's on a knife edge.
Stay up with us as the drama unfolds and America decides their next president.
We'll discuss what it means for them, for the world, and for our special relationship. America Decides, tonight from 11.
Only on GB News.
It's 9 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight. The ultimate sickening disrespect. A huge pro-Palestine protest is planned for the martyrs on Remembrance Day. It should be stopped. And...
mother!
Labour wants to fast-track asylum seekers from Afghanistan, Syria and Iran. Why aren't we only taking the women? Let the men stay and fight. Plus...
Ed, tell us about Labour's climate and nature plans.
First, by 2030, with Labour, we'll have clean power powering every community.
Don't boil your kettle or use your oven. That's what Ed Miliband wants you to do to hit his net zero target. But is his independent report actually as independent as it seems? And the Olympic boxer who looked like a bloke, yeah, it turns out it is a bloke. Ex-Olympian and women's rights campaigner Sharon Davies goes in swinging on that. Also...
We were satisfied that no non-police firearms had been recovered. They were pressing me. Are you sure? Are you sure there's not a firearm here? Yes, we were sure.
The BBC is accused of throwing police officers under the bus by publishing a biased Chris Carver documentary. Can our state broadcaster sink any lower? Plus... Should we ban fireworks? One MP thinks so. Are they a menace or just a bit of fun? On my panel tonight is columnist and broadcaster Esther Krakow, the director of the Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity, Stephen Wolfe, and ex-Labour Minister Bill Rammell. Oh, and...
I'm hereby calling for the death penalty for any migrant that kills an American citizen.
Oof. Trump calls for migrants who kill Americans to face the death penalty. Is that enough to swing the US election? Get ready, Britain. Here we go. Has Ed Miliband been caught with his pants down? Next.
Good evening, I'm Sophia Wensler with your headlines just after 9 o'clock. Millions of Americans across the US are casting their votes as Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are neck and neck to become the next president. Donald Trump cast his vote in Florida earlier alongside his wife Melania. The former president spoke to media saying, "I hear we're doing well."
I feel very confident. I have felt. You know, we went in with a very big lead today, and it looks like Republicans have shown up in force. I don't have to tell them that there'll be no violence. Of course there'll be no violence. My supporters are not violent people. I don't have to tell them that. And I certainly don't want any violence, but I certainly don't have to tell. These are great people. These are people that believe in no violence.
Republican vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance has also cast his vote. Speaking outside the polling station, Trump's running mate said, "We do expect to win." Meanwhile, Joe Biden has called on voters to make history by electing Kamala Harris as his successor as he prepared for a quiet election day at the White House. And Hollywood has come out in support for Harris too, with actresses Anne Hathaway and Julia Roberts among the celebrities sharing that they have voted for Kamala Harris. Both stars signalled that they voted in interest of women following controversy surrounding abortion, which Miss Harris has made a big focus of her campaign. To the Middle East now, where Israel's Prime Minister has fired his Defence Minister, Yoav Gallant, saying it's down to a crisis of trust between them. Benjamin Netanyahu said in a statement that his trust in Gallant had eroded in recent months. He added that Foreign Minister Israel Katz will replace Gallant. Sir Keir Starmer has responded to a letter from Sir Alan Bates calling for faster compensation payments for postmasters impacted by the Post Office scandal. It comes after Mr Bates claimed he had contacted the Prime Minister twice in the last month, but was still waiting for a response. In his letter, he demanded a March 2025 deadline for compensation for the victims of the scandal. However, Number 10 declined to commit to the campaigner's suggested payment deadline. Police have confirmed that a pet dog which killed a 10-year-old girl was an XL bully. North Yorkshire Police said the animal had been euthanised after it fatally attacked Savannah Bentham at her family home near Moulton on Friday. Savannah died at the scene despite efforts by medical professionals and a member of the public who came to help the family. And some breaking news in the last few minutes. 2 bodies have been found off the coast of Calais, according to the French Coast Guard. It comes as more than 5,000 migrants arrived in the UK after crossing the Channel in October, making it the busiest month of the year so far. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome along. Now, loads of people think that Ed Miliband is an eco-fanatic who will bankrupt Britain and leave us all shivering in our own homes so he can sacrifice us at the altar of his net zero fantasy. In order to hit his 2030 clean power target, we would need to take unbelievably radical action that would cost us possibly hundreds of billions of pounds and which most people, I'm convinced, would not actually support. you'd be asked to have energy-saving sessions, i.e. not boiling your kettle, using your oven or turning the microwave on during peak time so that Red Ed can keep Greta Thunberg happy. But there's more than that. It requires a doubling of onshore wind farms, a tripling of offshore wind farms, a tripling of onshore solar sites, a 5-fold increase in battery storage, nuclear plants staying open longer than intended, and the construction of carbon capture facilities. Now, imagine the cost. Imagine the change to Britain's countryside. Imagine the scale of that project. Imagine where you live changed irreversibly to hit Ed Miliband's target. In order to do that, you would need to change planning laws. You would need to secure unbelievable levels of taxpayers' money. And you would need the British public to all believe that they were living in a climate emergency that is so urgent that it has to be done now or else. And the public would need to be told that their energy bills wouldn't go up as a result. So what Ed Miliband really needs here is some kind of independent report that says just that. Well, step forward, NESO, the National Energy System Operator. Can you believe it? They do say just that. They say that Ed Miliband's plans for a clean energy system by 2030 can be achieved if we take urgent action to reform our planning system, and that if ministers urgently make the right policy decisions, like the ones that Mr Miliband wants, then we could even get cheaper bills. They say Ed Miliband's plans for a clean energy system by 2030 can be achieved if we take urgent action to do all of those things. Ed Miliband was cock-a-hoop with this. He said, this independent report provides conclusive proof that the government's clean energy superpower mission is the right choice for the country, replacing Britain's dependency on volatile fossil fuel markets with clean, homegrown power controlled in Britain. The government is determined to ensure the significant reforms to planning and grid we need so we can back the builders and support investors to make this once-in-a-generation upgrade of Britain's energy infrastructure happen. But hang on a minute. Something doesn't seem quite right here. Earlier today, I went onto Companies House and looked up National Energy System Operator. Let's have a look at the people section, OK? What you see is that there is one active person with significant control, and that person is the Secretary of State for Energy Security and Net Zero. Now, that is Ed Miliband. The address is the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. Well, it looks like this independent report that Ed Miliband is using to push his net zero lunacy might not actually be that independent. The company was brought into public ownership in September, and this report was published today. It is truly independent, is it? If the person with significant control is the Secretary of State for Energy Security and Net Zero? Should Ed Miliband not have said that he's the person with significant control behind that company? These are all very serious questions. We have contacted Ed Miliband's special advisor, we have contacted the government department, and we're yet to hear back. There may well be an innocent explanation here, and everyone wants to hear it, Ed. The NESO website states that the Secretary of State holds the shares and retains ultimate responsibility. The government ultimately owns NESO, but it has no operational control. They state that there is no operational link between the company and the Secretary of State. It adds that there is a clear separation between the government's role in setting national policy and their influence as a majority shareholder. But what we've outlined here isn't a particularly good look, is it? Look, just think about this. In a few years' time, when you have to pre-boil your kettle at 2 a.m. to put your coffee in a flask for the morning, you spend an hour tugging on a wind turbine on the roof of your house so you can generate enough hot water for a 30-second shower, and you're forced to watch a shadow puppet show via candlelight in your front room as you huddle together for warmth. You might wonder whether or not the government minister in charge of net zero had actually been basing his policies on entirely independent advice. Let's get the thoughts of my panel this evening. I've got columnist and broadcaster Esther Crackhill, I've got the director of the Centre of Migration and Economic Prosperity, Stephen Wolfe, and the former Labour Minister, Bill Rammell. And Bill, I think it's only right that I start with you on this. This doesn't smell right, Bill, does it?
I think this is confected nonsense with respect, Patrick. As the statement from the department made clear, there is clear operational independence. The people who've authored this report are independent experts. They wouldn't have put their names to the report unless they had the independence to make that clear. Just to clarify something, Bill, on Companies House, it says that the Secretary of State, who owns this company, has the power to hire and fire directors. So if you were working in that company, would you publish a report that completely contradicted what the Secretary of State said?
for fear of losing your job.
These are independent scientists who put their name to this report, and their own credibility wouldn't allow them to be misused in that way. And let's come to the central thrust of what you're saying, Patrick, that people don't support this. You look at the polling evidence, 69% of people are concerned about climate change.
No, that's different.
I think
there's a big difference. If you ask them if they want their bills to go up,
61% want to get to net zero. This is about reducing energy costs. It is about energy security, and it's about creating.
Can I just point out that Labour has a precedent with this? Do you remember when Sadiq Khan was trying to justify his ULEZ expansion and his office paid a certain research team at a university £800,000 to come up with data that supported that his ULEZ expansion would lead to racial justice because of cleaner air? I don't know many people, black people on the streets of London, shouting about the racial justice of cleaner air, but here we go. So this is not surprising. Labour has a track record of doing this. But I think the bigger concern with Ed Miliband is the fact that he inspires zero confidence. He hasn't been talking about cheaper energy. He's like a student activist that's gone mad, talking about clean energy, net zero, all of this. I'm like, the UK has some of the highest energy costs in the developed world.
Yeah.
And that has significant ramifications, not just for economic development, but for business investment, for households and all of that. He's not talking about cheaper energy. He's talking about these fetishes about putting these mini Eiffel Tower sort of energy networks in places like Camden that people don't want, by the way.
Can he seriously stand there and say, with a straight face, this is an independent research that happens to, it just coincidentally happens to completely vindicate everything, every bit of policy that I need, all the radical planning, etc. Can he really say that independent?
Well, with respect to Bill and his argument that these are independent scientists who are working within. I was looking up them. Finland Sykes, Dr. Paul Colby, Alistair Fox, John Linwood. All of these people are employed in a company whose ultimate boss is the Secretary of State. And I think it's a little bit naive to say that if you're going to try and produce any work for them, that you're not going to do it that aligns yourself with the boss. No one I know actually writes reports that upsets their boss, upsets the shareholders, and upsets ultimate control, because they know if they do, they'll get fired. And is it your contention, Bill, that these people will write reports that will actually be opposite to the views of those in government? I don't think they will. And so that's where the lack of independence would do. And if you were on the other side, if you were a Labour MP and said this of the Conservatives during COVID, who owned a COVID business, who was your friend, you'd be outraged by this. And that's exactly that hypocrisy that turns us back to two-tier care. We've now got two-tier in systems of actually looking at who's in control.
Well, look, I'll make it very clear. We've gone to them. We've gone to loads of people at multiple different occasions today. We get to hear back. What I quoted to you there was from NESO's website. They absolutely reassure every single one of us that there is a complete, no operational overlap whatsoever between those two things. I contend that I think it's not a particularly great look. And obviously we'll have to wait and see if there are any further comments.
But Patrick, let's go to the substance of this.
Yeah.
Is it about getting economic regeneration? Is it about getting good green jobs?
Let's go to the substance. No, this is good. Bill, no, because this is my next question to you. Let's go to the substance. It would require a doubling of onshore wind farms, a tripling of offshore wind farms, a tripling of onshore solar farms, a five-fold increase in battery storage, nuclear plants staying open for longer than intended, and the construction of carbon capture facilities. We cannot do that in the next 7 years.
Well, and in order to do it, we need regulatory reform,
radical
planning reform.
Yes.
I'll tell you this, Patrick. NIMBYs have blocked economic reform and economic growth in this country.
It's not a NIMBY to want to do all of that. That's vast swathes of the British countryside.
So this is what we say.
That's not NIMBYs. That's literally change.
This is what we hear. Sorry, can I? Because I'm going to link in this. This idea that they're NIMBYs links into those of the farmers who are now suffering because of their farms. This is because we are urbanites who just don't understand the rest of the country. When William Blake, when we had our green and pleasant land, he wasn't mean we're going to be our concrete and glass covered land. It wasn't going to be one of our lovely, beautiful pictures by Gainsborough, which is going to be covered by glass. That's what we're going to see. Concrete over our land, an uglification of this country, a destruction of our culture. It's going to be ugly Britain. That's what you're going to be advertising for the rest of the world.
Can I just...
And we want it.
These buildings aren't green. They're ugly.
Here's the thing that would suggest that Ed Miliband is happy to manipulate the data to try and push through this green... No, hold on. So I'll give you an example. So he's talked about wanting to see more pylons in Camden, even though most of the residents don't agree with it. And there are concerns about having these huge sort of overground structures, these like basically electricity cables, and the concerns around the health impacts of basically having these giant like electrified cables overhead, the impact on children's health, for example. And his office said that there is some evidence, there's some scientific evidence, but it's not enough to basically override the whole thing. And there are people saying, why don't you put these cables underground? And his office said, oh, it will be too expensive to do this. But if the ideal is to have this dream of basically pylons, then why is he not concerned about the health impacts of it? This is what I'm saying. His office is happy to manipulate data that will support his position, and his party has done it before with Sadiq Khan.
This is a scandalous accusation.
Yeah, there's no indication.
There is no evidence whatsoever that Ed Miliband...
So him being the control of this company...
Let's let Bill come back to that.
There is no evidence whatsoever that Ed Miliband has manipulated the data.
Except being in control of the company producing the data.
To the substance of this. We're on the day of the American election. Look at the Biden administration's record over the last 4 years that is essentially driven this kind of green jobs agenda, and the States has got the biggest comeback in terms of economic growth of any advanced nation since COVID. And we can get that as well to secure our energy.
All right, OK, I just want to make one thing very clear as well.
I would say that's because we're actually buying all their oil and gas because of what's happened. Literally, that's the reason one of the reasons why America is growing so quickly.
Yeah, look, I just want to make one thing abundantly clear here, that my contention with this is the assertion by Ed Miliband that the independent report that he was championing today, which just coincidentally completely vindicates every bit of policy that he needs to get through in order to get this net zero by 2030 thing, is independent. I think there are questions over over how independent it is, and that is the point I'm raising here, and I would like answers on that. There may well be answers. It may well be completely independent, but you look at Companies House and it does look a little bit fishy. Bill, would you be happy to not put your kettle on during an energy... Oh, we can go home and have an energy-saving session, Bill?
Again, I don't think there's anything within any government report that says that's what we're going to do. And, you know, this will be advisory. Frankly, I don't think that's the right tactics. You've got to take people with you. And I think what we need is planning reform, regulatory reform, a huge boost for wind power, a huge boost for solar energy, and nuclear into the mix as well. And if we don't do that,
wind power is expensive and inefficient. Wind power is expensive and inefficient.
It is, and I spoke 2 days ago with an electrician and plumber who are looking at the boilers for a number of cottages in the places where I lived, and they said it is absolutely impractical to put in heat into the ground because it would cost about £20,000 per building because you have to insulate. That cost can never be recovered from an individual at all in the savings that you make in the future. It would take about 60, 70 or 80 years before you could make any savings. That's not helpful to people in this country.
So what would you do, Stephen? What would you do?
Nuclear. Nuclear, literally.
Absolutely nuclear everywhere.
It's a no-brainer.
Sorry, I'm in favour of nuclear.
Yeah, we don't need wind farms.
Nobody wants to talk about wind energy. You need a backup because there's not always wind. So you basically need 200% capacity to make wind work. It's expensive. The infrastructure is also not environmentally friendly. I don't understand this obsession with wind and solar when they're actually more efficient, cleaner forms of energy.
Hold on. You just went into a eulogy, Stephen, about how, you know, there's going to be massive opposition to wind and solar over the green spaces in the country.
Well, the Green MP didn't want it.
The same criticism will be made of nuclear.
But in terms of nuclear, we've seen the real radical change in the way that technology is to make them so much.
Okay, we're going to have to draw a line under this. We've got to draw a line. Look, I will stress again, I for one can't wait to hear from Ed Miliband on all of this, and I'm sure that our viewers and listeners can't either. There may well be operational independence, as they bang on about. I personally think that there's something that should be looked at just to reassure the public that if these reports are coming out backing up what, let's be honest with you, a radical minister And he is radical. By his own admission, he's radical on net zero. What a radical minister needs to get through Parliament, needs to get taxpayer funded. I would like to be absolutely crystal clear that that is indeed independent. And at the moment, I'm not sure it is. So there we go. Coming up, Imran Khalif, the boxer who won the Olympic gold medal in the women's welterweight, faces fresh scrutiny after leaked reports show that he is, shock horror, biologically a male. If only someone could have seen that coming. I'll be discussing that with Olympian and women's rights campaigner Sharon Davies, but... Is it time to ban fireworks? As a petition to do just that reaches 1 million signatures and heads to Downing Street, a spokesperson for PETA, the animal rights group, goes head-to-head with the owner of a fireworks shop very shortly. Stay tuned.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
On the 8th of October at Battersea Arts Centre, a new orchestra launched its inaugural season. The orchestra, which is named Chromatica, is formed of some of the best young musicians in Britain. They're due to perform in traditional venues and in community spaces. The aim is to bring their youth and dynamism to a wide repertoire of music. Predominantly, they'll work with emerging conductors who will have the chance to shape the orchestra and its repertoire. To share her experiences of bringing the ensemble together, I'm joined by the violinist and Chromatica Orchestra lead, Maren Bosma. To what extent is this novel? To what extent is this new ground?
Well, new ground, it is new ground in a sense that this is a completely new orchestra. Obviously, in the current sort of cultural climate, it's not really easy to set up a new orchestra. And so, in that sense, it's a novelty for us to kind of try and carve out our space in the current climate of musical orchestras and musicians in Britain.
Yes, I mean, it's quite odd in a way to think of a new orchestra because the ones that we have tend to be struggling and numbers indeed have been reduced. I used to be associated with an orchestra which unfortunately went under. You've got some private backing for this.
Yeah.
Why do you think the private backers have been willing to give you support? What is it that they see as your unique selling proposition?
Well, Chromatica Orchestra essentially is an early career orchestra. So we're formed of all sort of top musicians who've graduated in, say, the last sort of 5 to 10 years. Because everyone is of that generation, there is a sort of enthusiasm and dynamism that we bring to the stage I think is quite unique. The orchestra's mission, it's really focused on creating opportunities for young emerging musicians.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight. We are only on GB News, and can you hear some fireworks going off outside? It's time now for our head-to-head. So, bonfires and firework displays are taking place this evening to mark Guy Fawkes Night. A petition, though, with more than 1 million signatures will be delivered to Downing Street tomorrow, calling for tighter firework restrictions. Campaigner Julie Dorm is calling for the private use of fireworks to be restricted to traditional dates, such as Guy Fawkes Night, New Year's Eve, Chinese New Year, Diwali. I mean, my question is, though, are they a menace or are they just a little bit of fun? Should we be banning the fireworks? Let me know your thoughts. Go to gbnews.com/yours say or tweet me at GBNews. And while you're there, go and vote in our poll. I think over the course of this discussion, I'm going to play you a couple of clips of people firing them off out into the streets generally, and also scaring animals. That is one of the big issues at play here. I know a lot of people are concerned about. Now, I'm joined now by PETA spokesperson and director. I'm joined now by PETA spokesperson and also the director of the Centre of Economic Prosperity and Migration as well, Stephen Wolfe, mainly because our fireworks expert unfortunately dropped out. It's Jennifer White, who's the PETA spokesperson. Sorry about that, Jennifer. So you are on the side of banning fireworks, is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And the main reason is you can get silent fireworks or you can use light shows that have all of the celebration, all of the, the fanfare of fireworks, but just without the terrifying noise. And if everyone switched to them, it would stop animals from being terrified, or we know countless animals are injured on fireworks night every year. It would help veterans, people with PTSD, parents with children who are sensitive to noise. There is just absolutely no reason why in 2024 we still need to be using something which we know can and does cause a lot of harm.
I mean, so the animal side of it is a big deal, right? But we have got a clip actually of some livestock being scared at a farm. So this is about some cattle and some horses that are being terrified from the fireworks going on over there. So. It's not particularly nice, is it? There you go. I mean, Stephen, how do you come back to that on the animal rights issue, Stephen?
Well, what I would say is, in terms of animal rights, I appreciate that some animals... I had a dog, for example, Bobby, our little wire-haired fox terrier, who wasn't really acceptable to the idea of fireworks, which I love, and my daughter loved very much so. And so that's why I think it's perfectly acceptable, as we do, to have organised firework displays in different places. I went to my local village one in the Plough-In pub in Winchester over the weekend. Absolute superb event. Hosted about 550 people there, and was actually taken care of, very sensibly looked after it. And if you're talking about noise and being scared about it, you've just shown a report about a dog killing another child. And the numbers of people who were killed by dogs this year actually outweighs the number of people who were died from fireworks. If you talk about animals creating noise, dogs create enormous amounts of noise. I know. I've seen it myself. So if you're thinking about people being scared by them, they can be. So the argument goes both ways. Just because you've got noisy fireworks...
I mean, I would say those are two very separate arguments.
Hardly.
We're talking about animals literally being scared to death by organised fireworks or, whoever is behind them. But, of course, it's not just animal companions that, we share our homes with. It's wildlife running in front of roads after they've been frightened and getting into traffic accidents. Then human lives are in danger as well. Or it's birds flying up chimneys because they're so terrified. Horses bolting from their field and then either having to be euthanised or dying from a heart attack.
Could I ask, do they do the same thing in a thunderstorm, though?
Well, thunderstorms are a natural event, but fireworks are a man-made festivity that we set off a few times a year.
And the fireworks where these probably occur actually once or twice in terms of the year. These are not occurring over a period of time.
But if you could use a silent option, a silent alternative, which does exist, or light shows, why would you choose the loud option?
They do exist.
Is it not the visuals?
On my day that I got married, we actually booked in to have silent fireworks because the only place that we were allowed to have them, but unfortunately they turned out not to be silent.
Right.
The whole village.
I know you're not allowed to go back there.
No, not allowed to go back.
Could I just put another side to this, though? Because it isn't just about the animals. It's also just about civil disobedience, actually. And we've got a couple of clips here of people going absolutely berserk with fireworks in the streets. We see it every year where people buy them, so they can obviously just get hold of these things. Fire them at each other or shops or emergency workers. I think I can play you a little clip of something that's going on. I believe this was in the Birmingham area. Yeah. I mean, it's not ideal if you're walking home from work and you've got someone there who's firing them off. I mean, Stephen, at the very least, should we not have maybe a bit more regulation on who can get hold of these things?
Well, I think we've got some pretty strong regulation. What we should be having is some very strong policing that actually address these people, puts them in prison and doesn't allow them out again. But, of course, we're in a government at the moment and we would let them out after about 40% of their time, even if they were arrested and even if we had the time to get to court. I think what you've got was antisocial behaviour. If we had to do every aspect of antisocial behaviour, whether it's those on bicycles who go through red lights, whether it's those in cars who are actually breaking the law, then we'd be imprisoning everybody. Okay. My point is that we should be using the law properly to address these criminals, and that's what they are.
But I also would say, you know, in the context of the 5th of November, you know, there is just absolutely no reason for us to be risking animals' lives, the lives of humans. You know, this is terrifying for people with PTSD, army veterans. There's just absolutely no need for the noise of fireworks. You know, we live in an age of innovation. There are drone shows, there are light shows. Wouldn't it be simpler and better for society overall to not be putting people in prison for setting off something which we frankly don't need in the first place?
I think you're going to have all those hundreds of children that I saw who were enjoying the lights of the fireworks on Friday night, who would be totally against you on this, including my daughter.
Well, if any of them have animal companions at home. I love the pageantry, and I love the remember, the 5th of November, gunpowder, treason and plot. It's part of our culture, it's our Well, there's going to be a lot of people watching at home tonight with their animal companions, absolutely terrified, doing everything they can to try and keep them calm.
Sure,
and it's just not working.
One night of the year.
All right, look, strong stuff on both sides. Thank you very much, both of you. Much appreciated. Now, earlier today, I did ask our viewers whether or not you think fireworks should be banned. The results are in. So 36% of you think that they should be banned. 63% of you said no. So there you go. It's a lot more split than our usual polls. I'll just show the strength of feeling out there. There are a huge amount of animal lovers out there. I know that. Jennifer, thank you very much. Great to have you on the show. Stephen, good to have you back so soon. And for a second, I thought you were going to have to pass yourself off as a firework shop owner, but alas, no. In the defence of the firework shop owner, it's his busiest night of the year, and clearly he hadn't anticipated that. Anyway, coming up, the BBC is hit with yet more accusations of bias, this time over the Chris Carber case, after a new Panorama documentary aired repeatedly stating that Carber was unarmed. Former police sergeant Harry Tanguy joins me shortly, but next, leaked reports show the female category Olympic boxing champion, Iman Khalif, is actually biologically a male. I'm going to be discussing that with Olympian and women's rights campaigner Sharon Davies. Stay tuned.
Evening. Thanks for joining me for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Mild, misty and murky sums up the weather tomorrow and indeed for the overnight period. High pressure is edging away, but it's still controlling the weather, not just for us, but across most of Europe, in fact. A weak weather front is trying to mix things up a little. That will introduce more cloud and some patchy rain across the far northwest of Scotland. The breeze picking up here as well during this evening. But elsewhere, the winds are pretty light. There's a lot of cloud around. Could be some fog patches, particularly on higher routes, but even at lower levels across parts of the southeast of England, where temperatures will dip down to single figures. Maybe not far off freezing through some parts of northeast Scotland. Here to start Wednesday, but also here we'll have some brighter skies. Elsewhere, well, brightness hard to find. It's a glum start to Wednesday. Thick cloud, mist, drizzle, murky and misty. Some damp conditions over southwest Scotland, particularly over the hills here. But for many, it'll be a dry start. And although it'll be a bit colder in northeast Scotland, we should also see some sunny spells coming through here. A little bit of rain early on across the far north and northwest of Scotland. So that should tend to edge away. We'll keep some thicker cloud around western coast and hills, so a little bit of drizzle. But for most, it'll just be dry and cloudy. Bit more optimistic for some breaks in the cloud tomorrow. North Wales again, parts of northern England too, and again northern Scotland actually seeing some sunny spells here with a bit of sun. 16, maybe 17 or even 18 Celsius. Even where it's cloudy, temperatures a bit higher than today. Quite mild really, 13 or 14. But I say overall it is fairly grey, as it will be again on Thursday. The breeze getting more noticeable through tomorrow and in the west on Thursday. Further east mostly it's light winds, so again just a lot of cloud. Most places dry and temperatures a touch above average. Where we see some sunshine there, those temperatures climbing into the mid-teens. Bye for now.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets at My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring. Not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain. Followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Welcome back. So, Iman Khalif, the boxer who claimed Olympic gold in the women's welterweight this summer in the Paris Olympics, despite failing gender eligibility tests at last year's World Championships, well, the first round victory on the way to gold resulted in Italian Angela Carini suffering a broken nose in a bout that overshadowed the entire Paris Olympics. She even refused to shake Khalif's hand afterwards because of the situation. Well, following this fight, International Olympic Committee came out fighting for Khalif regarding her eligibility.
These two are women, and they have the right to participate in the women's competition.
That was pretty clear there from them. But now there are calls to strip Khalif of this gold medal, as a leaked report reveals that, after all, Iman Khalif is biologically a man. So will the IOC do the right thing, or will they refuse to throw the towel in and continue to defend their decision? I'm joined now by Olympian and women's rights campaigner Sharon Davies. So what we're now being told, Sharon, is that that bloke is a bloke.
Well, are we surprised, Patrick?
No.
I mean, everybody knew, you know, and we're talking about, obviously, Khalif at the moment, but there were two DSD athletes that are biologically males that were allowed to box females. And what's the most atrocious with all of this is that Thomas Bach, who you saw there, and the IOC were given this information of June in 2023 by the International Boxing Association. They sent them the results of the sex tests that they did, two of them, on both of them. And so they knew absolutely that they were sending males in to box females at the Olympic Games. And so I think that this is criminal negligence, you know, personally, because those women could have had a broken neck. They could have, you know, been incredibly seriously injured. They could have potentially even lost their lives. It's an outrageous situation that we're in. And to sort this out, all we need to do is bring back a simple sex screening test. This takes 10 seconds. It's a swab to the inside of your mouth. I had one in 1976 when I went to my first Olympic Games. You have one done in your life because you will never need it again, because human beings cannot change their sex. And then we could protect the female category. That's 51% of this world, who at the moment only get 4% of the sponsorship dollar that comes out of sport. So we get this tiny piece of the cake anyway. And now we're being told we're not even allowed to have that anymore. I mean, I just find it heartbreaking, the message that we're sending to our young sportswomen right now. I really do.
Could you just clarify for me exactly what this latest report means then? So forgive me for being a bit crass here, but does Iman Khalif have testicles?
Yes, and a penis. Just a very small one. So because DSD, even DSD individuals are still male or female. You know, there are only two sexes in the world. There are only two gametes in the world, and no one can change their sex. And there is no third gamete. There is no person that carries both gametes, all right? So it's really very, very simple. There are males and females, even if you're a DSD athlete. Now, we had 3 DSD athletes with this exactly same DSD, which is 46XY5ARD. And they are Cassie Semenya, who took the gold medal in 2016, along with the second and the third. So the first female in that race way back in Rio was 4th. She was Canadian. No one will ever remember her name, and she didn't even get on the podium.
So, shocking.
I mean, it's not like they've not had these problems before. And we know this for sure because Casa Semenda went to court, the Court of Sports Arbitration, where those results had to be shown in court. So we know exactly what these individuals have, and we knew exactly what Khalifa had, and now we know again because this leaked document has shown us what we've got. So it's the fact that the IOC just don't care. They literally don't care that the risk that they're putting their female athletes at. You know, so forget about the fairness, because what's obvious, we're not entitled to that anymore, but we're not even entitled to basic safety when it comes to something like boxing.
But it's also not just simply about the very, very awful aspects of, especially in a sport like boxing, that a man beating up a woman repeatedly until they then claim victory in an event, which is absolutely bonkers. But it's also the fact that anyone who was pointing this out at the time was vilified, was, you know, threatened with all sorts of different action and ostracised, etc., for actually saying, well, as you've just said now, that actually it appears to turn out that that boxer has a penis and some testicles.
Yeah, and would have gone through male puberty. So this particular DSD, 46XY5ARD, that means that those individuals go through male puberty just the same as any other male. They have testosterone levels in the male range, not in the female range. So they have all the benefits of any other male, exactly the same. And there's even talk, you know, that they can father children. It might be through IVF because they will need to harvest sperm, but they produce sperm. So, you know, this is a ridiculous state of affairs where we know what's going on, and it's happening more and more and more because there's a massive benefit, obviously, you know, to these athletes to be able to steal titles and awards. We're seeing Khalifa at the moment on the front of Vogue magazine. You know, it's obscene what's being done to women at the moment in women's sport when it would be so simple to fix this problem. And it's not as if anybody isn't welcome in sport. We want everyone to do sport. We just want you to compete where it's fair. You know, we wouldn't turn around and say it's okay for a 15-year-old boy to say identify as a 10-year-old and go and beat up the 10-year-olds. And this is absolutely no different. We have categories in sport to give opportunities across the whole of society. You know, it's the same with, you know, a normal athlete deciding that they're a Paralympian and going off and winning everything at the Paralympics. Those categories are there for very, very sensible reasons. And there is nothing big.
What Khalifa says, just to interject here, Sharon, you know, what they say is that this report is contested and that they reject it, basically. So Imam Khalifa is adamant and saying, look, you know, they reject this report and they say it's not genuine. So, I mean, can they do that, really? Is there still some grey area here?
There's no grey area because the two tests that were done by the International Boxing Association banned those two athletes from competing, and neither of them have taken them to court. So if they go to court, they'd have to produce those tests. They're not going to court because they don't want to produce those tests.
Okay.
So there is no grey area. You know, and a male will hit 160% harder than a female of equal weight onto a less dense bone structure. So what is it going to take before common sense returns? Is it going to take a death of a female athlete before we turn around and go, we told you so? And my point of all of this is that the IOC are totally and utterly complicit in all of this. Okay. They have known all of this for an extremely long time and deliberately put that male in the ring with females.
Well, Sharon, can I thank you very much for your time? And I know that there are women out there right now who will be cheering you on, watching this particular show now, and you sticking your head above the parapet, as you have done consistently for a good number of years now, on issues like this. So thank you very, very much, and all the best.
Very quickly. Can I just say one thing? The reason I speak about it is for 20 years, the IOC did absolutely nothing to stop East Germany filling their female athletes full of testosterone. They let that go on for 20 years, and many of those girls have died. I could not sit by and watch it happen again to another generation. So that's why I speak out. And the IOC are absolutely no one to ever hold up as an example of how to run sport. OK. All right, Sharon, look, thank you very, very much. That's Sharon Davies there, Olympian and women's rights campaigner. Look, I will just say, you know, I have to say this, the Olympic Committee not here to defend themselves. Imam Khalifa rejects the results of this test, but, you know, you've heard from Sharon there. So there we go. The IOC calls tests that sparked vitriol targeting boxers Imam Khalifa and Lin Yuting impossibly flawed. Well, you know, I think the jury's out, isn't it? But anyway, coming up at 10 p.m, a pro-Palestine protest to honour the martyrs of the Middle East is being advertised for this Sunday.
Remembrance Sunday. Is this the lowest form of disrespect to our war dead? But coming up before that, the BBC is hit with yet more accusations of bias, this time over the Chris Carber case. They did a panorama documentary, and it essentially seemed like Carber was the victim. Former Police Sergeant Ari Tanguy joins me next.
Court cases.
A presidential dropout.
Assassination attempts.
This has been a US election like no other.
And if the polls are correct, it's on a knife edge.
Stay up with us as the drama unfolds and America decides their next president.
We'll discuss what it means for them, for the world, and for our special relationship. America Decides, tonight from 11.
Only on GB News.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Britain's newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Maria, potholes are the bane of everybody that uses the road, whether you're a car driver or a cyclist. As a cyclist, are even worse. How have we got into this situation where our roads are in such a bad state?
Well, part of it is to do with actually our climate. In somewhere like, say, Sweden, like the snow will fall on the ground, it will stay there for months. Whereas here we've got what's called a freeze-thaw climate, where the water comes down, then we might have a cold snap and it freezes, and the water within the pothole will then expand and make the pothole bigger. Then we might have a mild spell, and then that process repeats. So, we do actually need extra funding to acknowledge the fact that, we just live in a climate where we're sort of particularly vulnerable to potholes.
Why? I mean, the fact that this happens, these weather conditions happen, is no great surprise to anybody. Why has the problem been ignored for so long?
I think what's happened is we've had short-term funding. So it's like, oh, there's a pothole, let's patch it up. Oh, there's another one, let's patch it up. But the patches aren't actually really that strong, so then they break down again. So, really what we need is to have roads completely resurfaced, and then they'll just be pothole-free for a very long time. And that really is how funding should be. That's the direction funding should go in, as opposed to just sort of dribs and drabs here and there.
Do you think this government are going to be good for the motorist, or is there indeed a war on the motorist still?
The different parties come in and they've all got different policies that they wheel out, then they cancel the policies, and then there's so much lack of transparency. Like, for example, with the pothole issue, sometimes the government, whichever government is in office, will do some big showboating about how they're going to give X amount of potholes, and you still think that sounds really good.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. So, the policeman who shot Chris Carber in the head through the windscreen of his car in 2022, Martin Blake, was last month found not guilty of murder, leading to much public discussion over whether the outcome was the right one. The BBC has now released a panorama documentary called The Chris Carber Shooting, where Carber was constantly referred to as unarmed and many people argued made to sound like a genuine victim. Take a listen.
One of the first questions for the police watchdog, did Chris Carber have a gun?
A forensic examination had been done. We were satisfied that no non-police firearms had been recovered. They were pressing me. Are you sure? Are you sure there's not a firearm here? Yes, we were sure.
Yeah, the Met Police hit back at the documentary's content, arguing that there is a bias in its portrayal of events. In fact, the Met Police Federation said the continued use of the word unarmed when talking about Kaba remains scandalous when we consider how many colleagues have lost their lives because of vehicles. And indeed, this is what was happening. He was driving his car at police officers, and also, as well, happened to have been involved in a shooting just a couple of days before. I mean, is this just another example of biased reporting from our state broadcaster? I'm joined now by former police sergeant Harry Tanguy. Harry, I mean, if you watch this documentary, and indeed had read some BBC articles at the time, you would be forgiven for thinking that Chris Kaba was an innocent father-to-be with a completely clean slate.
Isn't this always the case, though? I mean, this is what's so frustrating, because they know the police can't say, no, he's not. He's a gang member. He tried to shoot someone dead in a nightclub, and his little cronies who were with him have been sentenced for 8 years and 10 years apiece, and they didn't even carry the gun and point the gun at them, rather. So, and of course, there was that shooting outside with shotguns he was suspected of, with balaclava in his pocket from outside of school. So they can't say this, and so this narrative is built and built. It's good clickbait, isn't it? To listen to mob rule and a grieving family, to insinuate continually or outright say that the police yet again are racist. Have we got a racist problem in the police? So on and so forth. And it builds and builds and builds, not over weeks or months, but years. And now it seems like afterwards. And Sal Nassim, who is currently the National Director of London of IOPC, I think, in my opinion, is just trying to save his backside, because when he says it was fed back to us that if we hadn't done it, launched the murder investigation at that time, then it's likely there would have been a level of disorder. We were on a knife edge.
Oh, right, great. So we'll charge certain people because of levels of disorder. We won't charge certain people because of levels of disorder. What about just doing what's right? And also, you know, the idea there that he was unarmed. He was driving a massive car and was trying to ram his way out of there. That's a weapon, isn't it?
Well, I was on armed response for 23 years. I was VIP protection, but I was operational firearms commander, just like this officer was. I was a firearms tactics advisor for all that time. But I also dual-rolled in my force. I dual-rolled as an investigator of serious and fatal road traffic collisions. I stopped counting after 150 deaths of all ages, and they were by accident. And when you have someone who has the intent, because he's shown his complete carte blanche for anything, officers, even if they don't know it's him in there, and it's better that they don't, it's better that they deal with what they've got in front of them and they act appropriately. But it just shows, I always said to people, you know, they'd say, well, when do you know when to shoot or not? I said, the rules are simple. I never give the benefit of the doubt. I shoot at the last opportunity when everything else that has been tried, or there's no time to try anything else. If my life or someone else is imminently in danger.
Just to say, Harry, sorry to interrupt you, but Chris Kaba knew when to shoot. There's some CCTV on the screen here of him popping off a weapon in a nightclub. He also, by the way, released a drill music video, was part of a group of people who did, where they appeared to brag about exactly this kind of gang-related stuff. I think we might be able to play a little clip of that.
Break down, Porsche, man, to brock it. Broken the work that brocky, so show them how to brock it.
Yeah, I mean, there we go. I mean, what do you think the BBC's up to here by, you know, allegedly trying to portray him as this, you know, innocent, sweet little angel?
Well, it's just the most underhand, cowardly, moral cowardice to think we don't care about humanity anymore. In order to get viewers, we'll stir everything up, show an empathetic view in the wrong ears, react, and it's not just the BBC, I'm sorry, it's a lot of the justice system. It could some in the CPS, and Sal Nassim, in my view, has done the same, because there's no fear nor favour here. It's through complete fear we are reacting, and we're going to throw this individual under the bus. And we're going to do it with great glee as well. And that is what's very sinister. It's got to stop. Something's got to stop very quickly now.
Look, thank you very much for your time, as ever, Harry. Great stuff. Thank you, mate. You take care. It's Harry Tanguy there, former Met Police officer. BBC spokesperson said all of our programmes are produced in accordance with BBC editorial guidelines. This includes a commitment to impartiality and hearing a range of perspectives. We encourage people to watch the documentary in full and make up their own mind. So that's the BBC's response there. Now, coming up, Labour are considering fast-tracking asylum seekers from Afghanistan, Syria and Iraq. Why aren't we only taking the women? Should the men not stay and fight for their future country, do you not think? But next... A pro-Palestine protest to honour the martyrs of the Middle East is being advertised for this Sunday, Remembrance Sunday. Should that not be stopped?
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening. Thanks for joining me for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Mild, misty and murky sums up the weather tomorrow and indeed for the overnight period. High pressure is edging away, but it's still controlling the weather, not just for us, but across most of Europe, in fact. A weak weather front is trying to mix things up a little. That will introduce more cloud and some patchy rain across the far northwest of Scotland. The breeze picking up here as well during this evening. But elsewhere, the winds are pretty light. There's a lot of cloud around. Could be some fog patches, particularly on higher routes, but even at lower levels across parts of the southeast of England, where temperatures will dip down to single figures. Maybe not far off freezing through some parts of northeast Scotland. Here to start Wednesday, but also here we'll have some brighter skies. Elsewhere, well, brightness hard to find. It's a glum start to Wednesday. Thick cloud, mist, drizzle, murky and misty. Some damp conditions over southwest Scotland, particularly over the hills here. But for many, it'll be a dry start. And although it'll be a bit colder in northeast Scotland, we should also see some sunny spells coming through here. A little bit of rain early on across the far north and northwest of Scotland. So that should tend to edge away. We'll keep some thicker cloud around western coast and hills, so a little bit of drizzle. But for most, it'll just be dry and cloudy. Bit more optimistic for some breaks in the cloud tomorrow. North Wales again, parts of northern England too, and again northern Scotland actually seeing some sunny spells here with a bit of sun. 16, maybe 17 or even 18 Celsius. Even where it's cloudy, temperatures a bit higher than today. Quite mild really, 13 or 14. But I say overall it is fairly great, as it will be again on Thursday. The breeze getting more noticeable through tomorrow and in the west on Thursday. Further east mostly it's light winds, so again just a lot of cloud. Most places dry and temperatures a touch above average. Where we see some sunshine there, those temperatures climbing into the mid-teens. Bye for now.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
You could win Christmas on us this year. There's cash, £20,025 in tax-free cash to make your new year go with a bang. There's also £5,000 to spend on all the gifts. We've also got Christmas lunch for you, with £500 in vouchers to spend at your favourite supermarket. And finally, a festive GB News goodie bag. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Court cases.
A presidential dropout.
Assassination attempts.
This has been a US election like no other.
And if the polls are correct, it's on a knife edge.
Stay up with us as the drama unfolds and America decides their next president.
We'll discuss what it means for them, for the world, and for our special relationship. America Decides, tonight from 11.
Only on GB News.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight. The ultimate sickening disrespect. A huge pro-Palestine protest is planned for the martyrs on Remembrance Day. It should be stopped. And... mother! Oh, great stuff. Now Labour wants to fast-track asylum seekers from Afghanistan, like that chap, by the way, Syria and Iran. Why aren't we only taking the women? And... like that brave lady. There. Look at that. That's an Iranian lady there. Let the men stay and fight. Why aren't we just taking women like her, genuinely in need? Plus...
hereby calling for the death penalty for any migrant that kills an American citizen or a law enforcement officer.
Oof. Trump calls for migrants who kill Americans to face the death penalty. Is that enough to swing the US elections? We'll be going stateside shortly. I've got tomorrow's front pages tonight with broadcaster and columnist Esther Krakow, the director of the Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity, Stephen Wolfe, and ex-Labour Minister Bill Rammell. Oh, and why are the Scouts indoctrinating young kids with non-binary gender BS? Get ready, Britain, here we go. Pro-Palestine protesters on Remembrance Day should be made to go and live in Gaza. Next.
Good evening, I'm Sophia Wensler with your latest headlines from the GB Newsroom. Millions of Americans across the US are casting their votes in the final few hours as Donald Trump and Kamala Harris are neck and neck to become the next president. Donald Trump cast his vote in Florida earlier alongside his wife, Melania. The former president spoke to media, saying, "I hear we're doing very well."
I feel very confident. I have felt, we went in with a very big lead today, and it looks like Republicans have shown up in force. I don't have to tell them that there'll be no violence. Of course there'll be no violence. My supporters are not violent people. I don't have to tell them that. And I certainly don't want any violence, but I certainly don't have to tell. These are great people. These are people that believe in no violence.
Republican vice presidential candidate J.D. Vance has also cast his vote. Speaking outside the polling station, Trump's running mate said, "We do expect to win." Meanwhile, Kamala Harris has made a surprise appearance at the Democrat Party's Washington, D.C. headquarters. The vice president is meeting supporters and staff and crashing a phone banking session. And Hollywood has come out in support for Harris too, with actresses Anne Hathaway, Julia Roberts and Reese Witherspoon among the celebrities sharing that they have voted for Kamala Harris. The stars signalled that they voted in the interest of women following controversy surrounding abortion, which Ms Harris has made the focus of her campaign. To the Middle East now, where Israel's Prime Minister has fired his Defence Minister, Yoav Gallant, saying it's down to crisis of trust between them. Benjamin Netanyahu said in a statement that his trust in Gallant had been eroded in recent months. He added that Foreign Minister Israel Katz will replace Gallant. Police have confirmed that a pet dog that killed a 10-year-old girl was an XL bully. North Yorkshire Police said the animal had been euthanised after it fatally attacked Savannah Bentham at her family home near Moulton on Friday. Savannah died at the scene despite efforts by medical professionals and a member of the public who came to the family's aid. Now, 2 bodies have been found off the coast of Calais, according to the French Coast Guard. It comes as more than 5,000 migrants arrived in the UK after crossing the Channel in October, making it the busiest month of the year so far. And the Queen is unwell with a chest infection and has had to withdraw from her engagements this week. That's according to Buckingham Palace. Sir Keir Starmer posted on X saying, "On behalf of the whole country, I wish Her Majesty the Queen a speedy recovery." The Duchess of Gloucester has stepped in on behalf of the Queen to attend the annual opening of the Field of Remembrance at Westminster Abbey on Thursday. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Patrick.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Good evening. The pro-Palestine mob should be banned from protesting on Remembrance Sunday. Last year, hundreds of thousands of people marched through London on Remembrance Weekend, and I regret to inform you that in Birmingham, they're going to do it again. Look at this poster put online by Birmingham for Palestine. So they say that on Sunday, the 10th of November, they're going to gather in Birmingham to, quote, honour the martyrs, honour the strong martyrs, and mourn the murder of innocent Palestinians. They're also apparently going to be praying in congregation. They're told to bring wudu, which is the ritual washing performed by Muslims before prayer. It's not as if we don't have enough pro-Palestine marches all the time, is it? In fact, we have had plenty where they've climbed on war memorials and committed criminal damage. Police there having to guard the cenotaph as the mob marched towards them. Normally, though, a lot of these organised demonstrations tend to take place on a Saturday. Well, why then has this one in Birmingham been organised specifically for the Sunday? Is that not a provocation, do you think? Is that not a two fingers up to our war dead? The pro-Palestine mob are the most entitled, disrespectful bunch of people. They've targeted MPs' homes. And as we know, they've targeted MPs' offices. Yeah, so there they are outside Labour MPs' offices. They've also targeted Jewish charities. And they targeted Remembrance Sunday last year, didn't they? But now in Birmingham, they're going to do it again this year, by the looks of things. It's not like they don't get their chance to protest all the time, is it? Can't they just give us this weekend in peace? Anybody who shares Britain's culture or values would never, ever do what they're planning. And for people saying this is free speech, no. This is about common decency and respect for the people who laid down their lives in many wars, but arguably most notably in the fight against fascism. And now we have people who behave like fascists, waving Palestinian flags right here in Britain, screaming at people, turfing them off the streets, disrupting their daily lives. Now, we contacted the local council in Birmingham there. We asked if they'd stop it. They just told us to go to the police. We went to the police. They haven't replied. Well, I'm sorry, but I think it's reasonable to question whether somebody who wants to conduct a pro-Palestine demonstration on the most sombre day in the British calendar really belongs in Britain. Let's get our thoughts from my panellists now. We've got the economist and broadcaster Esther Krakow. We're also joined by the director of the Centre of Migration and Economic Prosperity, Stephen Wolfe, and the former Labour Minister, Bill Rammell. Stephen, I'll come to you on this. I mean, is there any place in Britain for this kind of stuff, really? Seriously? On Remembrance Sunday?
Is there a place in Britain for dispute and protest? Yes. Is there a place in Britain for respect and dignity? Yes. The problem with these people is that they're forgetting the latter. They are incapable of having respect for people on this one day of this year when they have had multiple opportunities, as you've shown, to be able to exercise the freedoms of rights that those people died for. And when you look at those who are saying there's going to be lots of Muslims in there who are actually protesting against, for supporting those they call martyrs, they seem to forget that around 90,000 Muslims fought for the Allied forces and died during the Second World War. That about 400,000 Muslims were supported the French during that Second World War, and that Muslims died equally, and they are equally due respect on that particular day. I think shame on Birmingham Council for ignoring you and not stepping in with the powers that they have to be able to monitor this and stop this, and shame on the police for not ensuring that there are strong protests here and protecting the interests of those people who deservedly need to be supported, protected, and have that day of remembrance, for that's what it is, a day of remembrance.
Should it be banned on that day, do you think?
It should be heavily discouraged, but of course it shouldn't be banned because I believe in free speech. However, the question is why this is happening, and unfortunately it comes back to the fact that we live in a country where many of us are strangers to each other. We no longer share common values, we no longer share a common history. And you're right about citing the fact that Muslims did die in the Second World War for our freedoms. But I would just like to point out that I think there's been a lot of trivialization of the war in the Gaza, the conflict in Gaza, and unfortunately, what I've noticed is people have used the plight of the Palestinians, narcissists have used the plight of the Palestinians to engage in such gross public misconduct. What is happening there, whether you're pro-Israel or pro-Gaza or whatever, it's not a joke. There are thousands of people dying, suffering. They're still hostages, stuck in that awful, awful situation. And the fact that these people claim to be acting on the behalf of Palestinians, who, by the way, benefit in no way from this, in no way having the flag of that territory associated with disrespecting people that died for those freedoms that they're exercising, for me is what makes me feel, just annoys me to no end.
Bill, anyone who cared about British culture would not attend a Remembrance Day pro-Palestine demonstration for the martyrs in the middle of Birmingham, would they, on that Sunday?
Well, I think in terms of the tone and the timing of the demonstration, it's repugnant, it's wrong, and it's actually self-defeating because it will alienate
Well, but this is the point, and they're doing it in the name of the Palestinians.
And it will alienate people who might otherwise support the Palestinians. I don't think you can outlaw it because we do live in a free society. But I think it's incredibly important that we recognise the sacrifice and service of people who fought in the wars, particularly the further we get away from those wars. But the other thing that concerns me about this is just the simple-minded one-sidedness of it. I mean, look, I speak as a former minister for the Middle East, someone who's lived and worked in the Middle East. And you have to have understanding of the grievance and the loss on both sides of the divide to begin to make progress. And you're only ultimately going to be able to make progress through negotiation. And you don't get that through stunts like this, because I think it is a stunt.
What I want to put to you, Stephen, is, look, I hope that everyone turns a blind eye to this and that, you know, there isn't any trouble. There was big hoo-ha last year at the Cenotaph and around there in London when there was a large-scale protest. But I do look at this now, and I certainly would not condone any kind of fight back to this whatsoever. But it is a provocation, isn't it? And if there is some kind of response to this that goes too far, you know, are the people who respond to that, are they not being provoked here?
I think there is a provocation about it, but I actually think there is an alternative way of dealing with this. In the last occasions, and I was actually there, where I saw some of the antagonism, the provocation that was caused between the groups at the Cenotaph, I actually think there's a different approach. I think we can show how British and how English we could be and are on that particular day by facing them in solitude and quietness, actually almost taking the Mahatma Gandhi approach to these people who would be screaming and shouting at them, and we'd be just showing our English flags, our British flags, and our poppies on that particular day because we're quiet in respect. That would actually turn their stomachs much more than us shouting names at them.
And like toddlers throwing a tantrum, just ignore it.
Absolutely. We'd look at them, at the children that they are, the infantile approach that they have on that particular day. And whereas I do understand that both your arguments are saying, and I'm one who's not one for banning people, then use the powers of local government and the police to actually move the march in such a way that it's in a place that no one's even interested in wanting to go. Well, get them away from the city centre.
I agree with that. And use the power of persuasion. Anyone who organises a demonstration has to negotiate with the police about the organisation of that demonstration. Now, to give them a modicum of credit, it's not actually between 10 o'clock and 12 o'clock, which is the acute time for remembrance.
I mean, it starts at 12, I get what your point, but the point is it starts at 12, which means there will have to be a congregation before 12.
Absolutely, and that's where I think the leverage of negotiation with the police should have come in and say, right, you can have your demonstration, start at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, exactly.
And can I just say, so the only comment that we've had back from the police, by the way, is this. Now, the relevant persons will deal with the matter accordingly. Well, I don't think that screams a police force that particularly cares about the sheer level of disgust.
Well, I mean, at least they responded. At least they're cognizant of the fact that this is actually going on. But, I mean, look, I think this ultimately boils down to we just live with, like, we're a nation of strangers. We're strangers to each other. We don't share anything anymore because I don't understand. I mean, can you imagine sort of doing this on, like, Indian Independence Day? right? Doing something of this magnitude. This thing, when we actually look outside of ourselves and we look to other countries that actually cherish their national identity and their history and have things that they all share in common that are important to them, you would never see them tolerating this. And I'm not saying they should go on and beat protesters. I do take pride in the fact that we're a country where free speech still means something, at least in large part. But we don't really share very much anymore.
We did tolerate. We were not that we needed to tolerate it, but it happened, and there was a big deal made out of it. Pakistan Independence Day. There were massive celebrations. They shut down parts of Southall for it. When we hoisted the Pakistani flag over Westminster Abbey at one point, and indeed over various different buildings in Birmingham, for that matter. OK, can we not just have Remembrance Sunday?
I think it's a failure in our culture, to be honest, and I go along with you on this. I mean, I've argued for a long time we've got a failure of, and that's actually those who are arguing against me at the moment coming in. We've got a failure of multiculturalism. We have a huge number of multi-ethnicity and multi-religions in this country. The multiculturalism failed because we no longer respect the traditions of the country that we're in. And when we come along to it, we have prime ministers and others supporting Diwali and other religious days, and yet you want to cut down Christmas, for example. You don't want to celebrate St. George's Day. And we pull down our statues. We don't represent people properly, and we want to have marches on Remembrance Day. That is a breakdown of the culture of this country. Yet we're still tolerant to everybody else's.
Let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater. My observation and experience is that actually multiculturalism works better in Britain than it does in a lot of Europe and in the United States. But we need to get better at it. And, when I was in government, through the Prevent strategy, we talked about core, common British values, and we need to communicate those, and we need much greater adherence.
Well, it's not just about communicating it. It's not just about communicating it. It's about having a contract. You can communicate with someone as much as you want, but if they don't agree to it, if they don't buy into it, then you're communicating with a wall. That's what Here's the thing. Yes, you make a good point. We have to be able to actually even articulate what British values are. But it's not just about articulating them. You have to get people to accept them. These are, it's either this way or the highway. That's what we need to be saying.
But you can't police that.
Well, that's again, that goes back to the failure of the culture, right? You can't necessarily force someone. You can't inject someone with British venom or whatever. But that's where the culture comes in. It shouldn't be. It should be completely socially unacceptable to be doing this on Remembrance Sunday.
It feels like they're trying to commandeer. It feels like they are trying to commandeer Remembrance Sunday specifically for their own cause. It says, "Join us to honour martyrs and mourn the murder of innocent Palestinians for 76 years, honouring our strong martyrs." They're doing it on a Sunday. Again, I will stress. All right, we've seen issues that have flared up when there's been a vote in Parliament outside the House of Commons or an MP's house or things like that have been midweek. We've seen the big demonstrations every other Saturday. This is specifically on a Sunday, it's called Remembrance Day demonstration, trying to commandeer what is, frankly, a sacred day in the British calendar for their own cause. I just find it disgusting.
It's an arrogant lack of respect. And I think in verbal terms that needs challenging, and I think the police should intervene to try and move the timing of the
I also think it's something very modern, and I think it's very aggressive towards the country that we're in, because socialists, pacifists have opposed war for generations. And even straight after 1945, there were those who opposed it. They had their own marches, but they did not do it in the way that they're doing it today. It wasn't on Remembrance Sunday. They did it on different days. And they were respected for that. They might not have been liked by the establishment, and they certainly weren't, but they respected that they respected the culture we're in. We can't respect these people because they don't respect the country that they live in.
I think that is a point. It is a matter of respect, isn't it? And you can make your point any other day of the week. Indeed, people do make the points any other day of the week, and perfectly entitled to. And they're going to have to be allowed to do it on this day because, like you said, we can't. How do we ban it? How do we ban it?
But it is, Patrick, really, the alienation they are promoting. What I try to do is put myself in their shoes. Who do you think you're convincing and persuading by doing this?
But they're not. But this is the thing. You've hit the nail on the head. They're not interested in doing that. They're not interested in bringing people inside. They have this obsession, which is Palestine. They don't actually genuinely care about what Palestinians are going through. They just have this obsession.
It's incredibly simplistic.
Well, but they have this obsession, and they're doing everything in the name of that obsession. That's what it is. They're not interested in bringing people inside. And you know the real victims of this are the victims of the conflict.
Ordinary citizens in this country. I think they're just trying to grind us down from appreciating appreciating the country that we have, the history that we've got, and all the things that go with that.
I mean, the wider, which we have not got time to get into right now, unfortunately, but if you look at the direction of travel with this stuff, is it any wonder we've got a recruitment crisis when it comes to our own armed forces, actually, when you look at a day like Remembrance Sunday and you've got this stuff going on. But anyway, thank you very much for the lively start to the show. Coming up, I'll bring you all of tomorrow's newspaper front pages, plus we are obviously going to be taking you stateside because there's an election on. Don't know if you've missed that. Who will reign victorious? Is it Donald Trump or Kamala Harris? What are the first exit polls saying? I'll bring them to you. But next, well, Labour are considering fast-tracking asylum seekers from Afghanistan, Syria and Iran. Why aren't we only taking the women? OK? Let the men stay and fight. No? Political commentator Suzanne Evans joins me live and she's next.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss my big opinion. Mark meets and my take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Australian chef David Thompson is opening a new restaurant, Long Chim. The name, which translates roughly as come and try, already has locations in Sydney, Perth and Dubai, and previously operated in Melbourne and Singapore. It marks a return to London for Thompson, whose Belgravia haunt Naarm closed in 2012, but that earned him accolades including, in 2002, the first Michelin star awarded to a Thai restaurant. So you've mentioned Bangkok there. What is your love for Thai food? Describe to us why you think Thai food is such a great cuisine.
It's endlessly complex and satisfying. It just resonates on the palate. For me, as a cook, it offers a challenge. And the way that you cook it is you chase taste. You don't follow a recipe, you follow your sense of taste. And so with all these dishes that you'll taste today, but also in the restaurant that we're opening, it's all about a sequence of taste and seasoning that has some balance.
What is this dish?
This is something called Gengari Gung, which is an aromatic curry of prawns.
Lovely looking prawns, yes.
They're not too bad. And it's with something strange called water bamboo, which we found up in Chinatown just the other day. And it's a perfect accompaniment. I'll just take a little.
Yes. Describe that perfect accompaniment to me again. Water
bamboo.
What is it? Water bamboo, yeah.
And you would not know of it, because I didn't know of it that much either. And it tastes like a little bit of like young coconut meat. So it's perfect with these prawns and this curry. And what you need to have with this curry, because this is the way that Thai food works, an interplay of flavours. This little cucumber salad on the side, and that helps to bring out the spice and the sweetness and the savoury quality.
I must say, all of this looks so lovely.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. So, remarkably, Labour are now considering fast-tracking asylum seekers from Afghanistan, Syria and Iran. Why aren't we only taking the women, though? Why shouldn't we just let the men stay and fight? We can take some children as well, as long as they actually are children, not just pretending to be children. Why should it always be men from these countries? I'm joined now by political commentator Suzanne Evans. Suzanne, thank you very much. You know, you and I will both be able to see boatloads of men coming over. Simultaneously, we look at scenes in Iran where a university student was walking around in her underwear in protest to the hijab restriction. She, in all likelihood, will never be seen again. We see what's going on with the Taliban in Afghanistan. Women now, I believe, are the latest, not allowed to hear the sound of each other's voices anymore. These are the people that we should be fast-tracking for asylum, Susanna, or in some cases even going in and rescuing ourselves. So why would Labour want to fast-track asylum claims from those countries if it is men?
Well, I'm not sure that Labour is concerned, actually, about fast-tracking genuine refugees. I think what Labour wants to do is clear the backlog. It wants to shut down the migrant hotels. And I think the big fear that people around the country listening to this will have tonight is that what Labour really wants to do is stop the noise around asylum rather than actually do anything about genuine refugees. Now, as you said, Patrick, you and I see the boats, as does everyone else, coming in. We know that 85% of people coming across the channel in small boats are men. We also know that 79% of them are under the age of 40. Now, I'm old enough to remember years back, when you look at troubles around the developing world. I remember, the heady days of 1985, Live Aid and Band Aid. Now, in those days, before the advent of the internet, before the advent of widespread use of mobile phones, refugee columns were always, without exception, when you saw the pictures on the television, they were always women and children. No men to be seen anywhere. And that has now completely changed. So this tells me two things. One, it tells me that most of these people coming are not A, genuine asylum seekers, and B, it tells me that they are the kind of emerging middle classes in developing countries. They're the people who can afford to pay people smugglers, I believe, up to £8,000 each to come across the channel. So here's the concern. It's not that Labour genuinely wants to help the most desperate, which particularly in these cases will be women and children from Iran, Syria and Afghanistan. It's that it wants to get rid of the PR scandal around the issue, get people through the system. I don't believe it's going to support them. I think it's going to let them stay here, and that kind of solves the problem.
Suzanne, we've had a recent arrival who may or may not be currently detained. We're not entirely sure. By the name Madapasa. We've got a short little. He's quite famous on this show now. We've got a short little clip of Madapasa here. There you go.
Englishman, Nigel Pasa, don't talk about me. You not know me. I come to England because I want to marry with your sister. OK,
so he, we believe, is from Afghanistan. So conceivably, Labour would be happy to fast-track Madapasa, all right, but the women and children that he's left behind to be at the mercy of the Taliban, we'll just have to leave them, will we?
Yeah, it's absolutely disgusting, isn't it? But of course, the women and children in Afghanistan are not here. They're not the ones.
OK. All right, well, look, we've got a slight issue with Suzanne Evans' microphone there. I mean, another issue, and this is one thing I was hoping to put to Suzanne, I think we'll try and get her back on, but another issue that I know a lot of women fear is that, all right, so if people are coming, men are coming from parts of the world where tyrannical regimes systematically oppress women, women have absolutely no rights, women can be stoned to death, they're not allowed to listen to music, all of this stuff. Women are treated like second-class citizens at the best of times, all right? Do those men coming over on small boats share those views about women? Do they share those views? Are they actually deeply misogynistic? What are their views about women's rights? And if we are importing people with those views, some of them may be wonderfully progressive. I don't want to tar everyone with the same brush. I would never want to do that. Some of these people might be wonderfully progressive. Some of them might not be able to wait to go on things like the next Pride March. We don't know that for a fact, do we? But if there is a concern, and I have a concern, and I think women in this country are right to have the concern, about whether or not we could be fast-tracking people into Britain who actually have deeply misogynistic views towards women, and whether or not that is putting women in Britain at risk. When you see a policy like that about fast-tracking people, I, for one, would be more than happy if we were only fast-tracking women and children. And I think the British public could get behind that in a way that I suspect they are unlikely to do if we are seeing loads of people like Madapasa with an AK-47 tattooed on his cheek coming across the English Channel. We're not going to be able to go back to Suzanne, but thank you very much anyway. Suzanne Evans there, political commentator. Let me know your views. Coming up, though, Donald Trump is in favour of the death penalty for illegal migrants who kill American citizens and law enforcement officers. Is this a vote winner or a credibility killer? To discuss that, I'll be joined by the former Obama fundraiser, Alison Hoyne. But next, though, I'll bring you all of tomorrow's newspaper front pages, hot off the press, and there are some interesting results already coming out of America, so stay tuned for that.
Evening. Thanks for joining me for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Mild, misty and murky sums up the weather tomorrow and indeed for the overnight period. High pressure is edging away, but it's still controlling the weather, not just for us, but across most of Europe, in fact. A weak weather front is trying to mix things up a little. That will introduce more cloud and some patchy rain across the far northwest of Scotland. The breeze picking up here as well during this evening. But elsewhere, the winds are pretty light. There's a lot of cloud around. Could be some fog patches, particularly on higher routes, but even at lower levels across parts of the southeast of England, where temperatures will dip down to single figures. Maybe not far off freezing through some parts of northeast Scotland. Here to start Wednesday, but also here we'll have some brighter skies. Elsewhere, well, brightness hard to find. It's a glum start to Wednesday. Thick cloud, mist, drizzle, murky and misty. Some damp conditions over southwest Scotland, particularly over the hills here. But for many, it'll be a dry start. And although it'll be a bit colder in northeast Scotland, we should also see some sunny spells coming through here. A little bit of rain early on across the far north and northwest of Scotland. That should tend to edge away. We'll keep some thicker cloud around western coast and hills, so a little bit of drizzle. But for most, it'll just be dry and cloudy. Bit more optimistic for some breaks in the cloud tomorrow. North Wales again, parts of northern England too, and again northern Scotland actually seeing some sunny spells here with a bit of sun. 16, maybe 17 or even 18 Celsius. Even where it's cloudy, temperatures a bit higher than today. Quite mild really, 13 or 14. But I say overall it is fairly grey, as it will be again on Thursday. The breeze getting more noticeable through tomorrow and in the west on Thursday. Further east, mostly it's light winds, so again, just a lot of cloud. Most places dry and temperatures a touch above average. Where we see some sunshine there, those temperatures climbing into the mid-teens. Bye for now.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. Now, very shortly, I will have all of your front pages, but coming up at 11 p.m, Ellie Costello and Stephen Dixon will be hosting live coverage of the United States election. Ellie and Stephen, what's coming up?
Well, it's going to be a packed 7 hours, Patrick. As you can imagine, the first polls close at 11 o'clock our time in the States. That's in a little part of Kentucky that's on the sort of classed in the eastern seaboard, so it hits that time zone. But it's going to be a night packed of speculation, really. Who is going to win? It is so tight. Too close to call at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a historical election, whatever happens. And we have got the best people all over the US to bring you all of the action as it happens. We've got Ben Leo in New York. We've got Stephen Edgington in Washington, D.C. We've got Nigel Farage with Trump at Mar-a-Lago. And we've even got Adam Cherry down at a watch party in London, because whatever happens in the US has ramifications for us here, doesn't it? So we'll be unpacking all of that with top guests over the next 7 hours. Don't miss it.
Wow, absolutely fantastic. Thank you very much. In fact, you know, I don't have to go far to watch that, because I can just wander outside that door and let you two take it away all night. So thank you very much, guys. Make sure that you keep it GB News here. It really is going to be the place to be for a massively historical US election. So let's reveal all the front pages, shall we? We're going to go with the Metro first. There we go. So it goes... New Trump versus Harris drama. Meltdown, they say. Result on a knife edge, then voting machines fail in crunch states. Oh, gosh. Let's go to the I. America votes for its future and braces for election unrest. Let's go to the Daily Express. House prices to rise £84,000 in 5 years. That's nice. They've not decided to nose it on the US election there. First-time buyers face even tougher battle to get on the property ladder. The Daily Telegraph, big picture of Trump there. Russia behind bomb threats as US goes to the poll. They're also going for inheritance tax raid, puts food security at risk. Let's go to the Daily Mail now. As the nation decides, experts say the result is basically a coin toss. Trump says he'll accept the result, but only if the election is fair. Tinderbox America on a knife edge. So there we go. Now, just before we react to some of those front pages from my press pack, across the pond, Donald Trump and Kamala Harris have been rallying their supporters as the race for the White House reaches its boiling point. President Trump used the opportunity to announce a tough new idea on dealing with crime committed by illegal migrants. I think we can take a little look at that.
Hereby calling for the death penalty for any migrant that kills an American citizen or a law enforcement officer.
So is this a popular vote winner, or do you think? And more importantly, who will reign victorious in the race to the White House? Joining me live now from California is Silicon Valley pioneer and former Obama fundraiser, Alison Huynh. Alison, thank you very much. Tremendous to have you on the show. So there's comments like that from Trump. I can imagine that playing quite well with some people, really, you know, rallying the base, a bit of red meat. How do you see it going?
Good afternoon from across the pond. Yes, there's been a lot of rhetoric, but at the end of the day, people really want to have safe streets and they want to be better off than they were just, the last 4 years. And under Trump, we had that.
Yeah, OK. And so how do you see this going then, really? So you're a former Obama fundraiser, I believe. You've got a big picture of, I think, Obama behind you there. Hard for me to tell. I'm sat quite far away from the screen here. Are you confident of a Harris win, or what do you reckon?
So this is the original painting that inspired the Hope poster. So I did fundraising for the Dems as well as Obama. We were one of the first donors back in 2007. I've left the Democratic Party basically because of identity politics, the mix-up between equality and equity. God says we're all born equal, but we have to work hard to earn equity in a company, to earn equity in a country, the right to vote, the right to have health care. And I don't think it's right for illegal immigrants to cut in line over regular citizens for education, to vote, to have access to housing.
Right. Well, I must admit, I did not see this coming when I was told that I was going to be talking to a former Obama fundraiser. So amazing stuff, interesting. Do you see Trump winning then? I mean, everyone's saying here it's basically a coin toss. Can I just say in the advert break, I was trying my best to look at the latest polls and everything. You open Twitter and it's just the polar opposite view. CNN is saying one thing, MSNBC is saying the complete opposite at the moment. So what's it like? Who do you think is going to win?
Well, it's really confusing. And if you can imagine, you're a news media personality, you have access to all this. For normal people, it's very confusing. I liken this to looking at Yelp for a restaurant review, right? So there are millions of review for Trump, there's millions of review for Harris, and it's very confusing. And there are a lot of one-star reviews for both sides. Both sides have said some crazy stuff. Trump, as we know, have said some stuff. Oh, I'm going to protect the women, whether they like it or not. Harris, and you can fact check this, she actually said, well, I'm going to give free transgender surgery to inmates as well as illegal immigrants in holding cells. She said this in 2019. You can fact check it on Snopes. So they both said really crazy things. And so I think Americans are very smart, and we have access to the internet, to Yelp, and we know to discount some of this negative stuff. At the end of the day, people are like me, regular parents. We want to have safe schools. We want to have safe streets for our kids. We don't want to deal with like the identity politics. We want to have traditional reading, writing, mathematics. We're going into the golden age of AI. We want our children to be educated and to have good paying jobs. And we want the economy to do well so that way we can afford groceries and gas. So we're going to discount, I believe, all these one-star Yelp reviews and some of the crazy madness going around. And at the end of the day, I think Trump makes a lot of sense for the economy and for middle-class type voters.
OK, well, we, of course, as we will go on to discuss with our panel here, have this bizarre situation where one of your candidates, i.e. Trump, appears to absolutely love Great Britain, and now we appear to hate him. Whereas the other side that can't be bothered, we've actually gone and helped them, our government's gone and helped them during their campaign. So, you know, welcome to Clown World. But, Alison, thank you very much for your time this evening, and I do hope to talk to you again very, very soon. As Alison Hoyne, though, is a former Obama fundraiser, I think it's fair to say has been on a journey politically, so great stuff, thank you. Let's just bring in my panel now and talk about this. I mean, look, obviously it's all US election. Tinderbox America on a knife edge. This is the front of the Daily Mail, not my words, of course. Esther, how do you see it going?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that I'm not going to be one of those people that will stay up. I will be taking a magnesium pill and going to sleep and not turning on my computer until Thursday morning when all this is blown over. Because no matter what happens, this has been exhausting. Billions of dollars have been spent. They have been campaigning for months. They need to bring some sanity to this madness. They need to limit how much you spend and limit how much you campaign, because I think above everything else, everyone is just feeling fatigue. I can't imagine the average American that's being called up every other day by pollsters trying to figure out where they stand. It's ludicrous.
Well, yeah, I mean, they've even barricaded up things like the White House. They've barricaded up very soon. I'm not entirely sure, by the way, which side that is that they're expecting the most trouble from. I think it could be either or. But the best thing for Britain, Bill, would unquestionably be a Trump victory, wouldn't it?
Emphatically not. Look, I declare an interest. I think the guy's a monster. He's unfit for public office. However, in terms of what's going to happen, I've gone up and down. I think around the time of the presidential debate, Harris was a good bit ahead. Then it looked like Trump was creeping back and creeping ahead. The last 4 or 5 days, there's been a number of indicators that Harris was gaining ground. I was in Washington 2 weeks ago talking across the different sides, and I was really struck by a piece by a very, very well-respected political scientist around the notion of what are called shy Trump voters. People who will vote for Trump but won't tell pollsters they're doing that. His analysis was 4 years ago, 8 years ago, there were a lot of shy Trump voters. Now they're out there and proud. But the polling organisations haven't caught up with that, and they still factor in those shy Trump voters. So it may be, maybe this is, you know...
Wishful thinking.
Wishful thinking on my part.
Well, we don't know, do we?
It may be that actually they're overinflating the Trump support.
Yeah, but I mean, the point is, it doesn't seem like anyone knows at all at the moment. There's no smart money. I mean, what do you make of this? I mean, do you think Trump would accept the result? He says he will if it's fair.
I think he will accept this, because when you look at the issues that occurred in 2020, but then you look at the team that he's got around him, you know, he's got a very, very strong and capable team that most people are not really looking at. Of course, everyone sees his vice president in J.D. Vance, fantastic guy, but you've got Elon Musk, you have Robert Kennedy, a brilliant individual.
I mean, I was
individual, and many young people are voting for him, and you have Vivek Ramaswamy, who's an intellectual giant in terms of the way that you're looking at this.
Yeah.
So all of these people have got a great team behind him, and what I'm seeing is just like that lady there, is a chap called Brandon Scarhart began the walk back from the Democrats. And it was a movement that Facebook closed it down when it got 500,000 people who were Democrats who've walked away from Kamala. And I think that's why it's going to be very, very interesting.
But isn't it sad that we are asking if Trump will accept the results? I mean, I do find that, like, I think that even that is, for me, is sad. No one's asking, will Kamala accept the results? But
isn't it? Yeah.
I do find that quite concerning.
And we know they didn't accept it, by the way, the first time. Russian interference, all of this stuff.
They were a bit they basically didn't accept it through the media. But, you know, I think... I do find that concerning. However, I will say that this idea that, you know, all the shy Trump voters have come out actually know I mean, that's just not the case. They're still celebrities being cancelled to this day. Because of for supporting Trump. I just this idea that there's this all the Trump supporters are out there and no, I don't buy that at all. I don't buy that.
Hold on, look, I mean, Steve,
it's not something to be proud of.
You say that Trump is surrounded by good people.
Yes.
This campaign has been littered with examples of him having a clear message that he's supposed to project, and then he goes off-piste into mad ramblings, and his campaign staff have got their head in their hands.
I mean, Kamala Harris.
But equally, we can say that about Kamala Harris. I mean, just look at yesterday, where she's supposed to go on talking to the Muslim communities in places like Minnesota, who are really, really important to them, and she refused to talk about Gaza and then started talking about bacon and how important pigs and bacon were.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the sort of thing. And I find her words salads, the fact that she can't speak most of the time, entirely embarrassing. I know people are saying, oh, Trump can't speak. But she isn't capable of putting some sentences together half the time.
We're going to revisit this when we come back, and I'll have some more of tomorrow's newspaper front pages, and I'm going to take you live to a US election watch party with GB News reporter Adam Cherry, who, goodness only knows what state he's in, so stay tuned.
Cherry on it.
Court cases.
A presidential dropout.
Assassination attempts.
This has been a US election like no other.
And if the polls are correct, it's on a knife edge.
Stay up with us as the drama unfolds and America decides their next president.
We'll discuss what it means for them, for the world, and for our special relationship. America Decides, tonight from 11.
Only on GB News.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Let's speak now to Charlie Mullins, who's the founder of Pimlico Plumbers, and entrepreneur Oliver Hodgson. Really good to see you both this morning. Charlie, let's start with you. Has working from home and the culture surrounding working from home killed work experience, do you think?
Undoubtedly. Many companies now are not getting youngsters in for the work experience because of the fact they don't have the staff in. So if they're only in 2 days a week, they're not going to get in the youngsters. They've got no one to train them. So it's killed it totally. And if you think it's bad now, probably 4 or 5 years from now, it'd be absolutely ridiculous. This working from home, I said from day one, is going to kill youngsters' futures, youngsters' careers, and getting people into the workplace. So now the damage is showing through, unfortunately. COVID finished a couple of years ago. The working from home should have stopped and get people back into the workplace.
I mean, Oliver, you have to say it's difficult to see how people in a work-from-home environment can do any sort of on-the-job training at all.
It's really interesting, the work experience piece, actually, because we run an internship program in the summer here. We had 5 people in the office in person and they really thrived, but we did have a couple of people who joined remotely because of their own reasons, right, and where they were. I think it's a bit more nuanced than that as well, because I've got clients who have completely remote teams. Now, I don't. I have an office and our team are based in here, but our clients who do, they're able to offer work experience opportunities digitally with fantastic technology to people across the world, right? So they have people in their team who are working from all sorts of different continents, which is obviously fantastic. But I agree with Charlie, right? You cannot knock in-person engagement. You cannot knock being in the office.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. I've got a couple more front pages for you, so let's do those. We're going to start this round with the Times. World awaits America's fate. Trump, US will go to hell if Harris wins. He vows to accept the result if it's a fair election. Huge turnout in key swing states, apparently, so we wait with bated breath. They also have a story there about farmers planning to disrupt the food chain in protest over inheritance tax. Is it going to be Farmageddon, I wonder? Thank you very much. The Sun. Colleen, get me out of here trials. Apparently arthritis could exempt Wayne Rooney's wife from doing any trials in the I'm a Celebrity jungle. I suspect then she probably won't be in the jungle for too long. Just to tease ahead to a little bit about what we've got coming up here for you on GB News for the entirety of the evening. Yes, you've got Ellie and Stephen Dixon. You've also got, though, Donald Trump, who's going to be with Nigel Farage in Mar-a-Lago. Apparently Elon Musk is with them as well. So, you know, if you stay tuned to GB News, there is a chance, just a chance, that you might get Farage with Trump and with Elon Musk. So amazing scenes. But right now, though, we can go to Adam Cherry, I believe, who is at a watch party stateside. And Adam, I want to know what the mood is like, what the vibe is like where you are. Tell us where you are, where you're in London. You're not gone to America. You're not a tourist, are you? What are you doing there?
No, I'm actually in Clapham, Patrick. It's fantastic here. I've been watching your show because they've got it on 2 screens here, so I've been having a great time. Mood is buoyant. We're here for the long haul, aren't we? It's going to be a long night. Luckily, the bar's open, although I've been good so far. But everyone's having a good time. Beer's coming in. We're waiting for the States. It's going to be good fun, I reckon.
Just ask, what's the general the mood like there? Are the people of your particular bit of Clapham wanting a Donald Trump victory?
Well, these guys in particular, a lot of these are conservative, I must say. So there's a bit of Trump fever here. I don't know if you can say that's the same for the whole of Clapham, but look, tonight I've seen quite a few Make America Great Again caps. So maybe I'll see if I can grab one, and maybe we'll chat to people later on and see what they have to say.
All right, Adam, well, look, we're going to be thrown to you in, I imagine, varying different degrees of sobriety over the course of the evening. So have a great night, mate. You take care. Enjoy it. Enjoy Clapham. And if you look at Clapham in the right light, it looks just like New York, right? And not many people know that.
Squint one eye, you close.
Yeah. No, it
With
does. It
glasses
does.
on and a mask.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah, definitely. Do we think, panel, just to round us off, the fact that Donald Trump was nearly assassinated twice is going to actually still be on American voters' minds when they come for polling day? Yeah,
absolutely. I think
Really?
I think it gave him a boost. And I think people see him as a strong individual for those who believe in supporting America. And I think those who are the independents are looking, just as your lady did from California, are wanting to see someone who's strong enough to take on the economy, or someone who's strong enough to deal with China, and strong enough to be able to maintain the values of the United States. And that issue of going fight, I think will resonate in those independents.
You're shaking your head, Bill.
I don't. And if you look at the polling evidence, you know, the independents are coming over significantly towards Harris. But look, we've got skin in this game. This isn't just about America. It's about the global order. It's about our interests.
Well, the Ukraine war stops if Trump comes in, though, doesn't it?
That really concerns me. He's undermining.
What, stopping the war?
Yeah. You know, the idea that we have 1938 all over again and we just acquiesce to a state that has invaded an independent nation is appalling. I think Trump will bring that closer. I also think he will undermine fatally NATO, which has been the cornerstone of our security.
I mean, some people would say, Esther, that, you know, we do have to stop paying for this war at some point.
I mean, I think the pensioners that have just had their winter fuel payments removed to save 1.5 billion quid are not particularly keen on us sending more money to Ukraine. If Trump can wrap this up, I think they'll be like, good, we don't have to spend that money. You know, we've been in it for 2 years. It's not like we didn't support the Ukrainians at all. But, I mean, at some point, this has to end. So on that front, I'm not sure that the people in this country that are struggling will be convinced that that's a good course of action.
Rachel Reeves is going to put between 3 and 5 billion every year until forever to the Ukraine. She didn't give a date when it ends.
Not forever.
But she just said, how long the war is going to last. We're just going to support it.
We need a resolution which isn't just about
and
Russia having its way, because after Ukraine,
but Trump will bring a resolution.
It'll be Moldova, it could be Poland.
But it certainly won't be Poland, and that won't happen, not with the forces and the military that they've got. But what we will have is an end to that war, and that will mean stability on the economics of the globe, and that will improve everyone's life.
All right, well, look, we wait with bated breath. The jury very much is out at the moment, and it genuinely is. This is not some kind of like, you better watch GB News to find out. No one knows. So there you go. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. A lovely, nice work from our panel here. But the work is not done for us here at GB News. Why? Because up next, it's America Decides, all the way through until 6 a.m. We've got people scattered all over the United States, as well as a top group of pundits right here in this studio. And a little birdie tells me that Nigel Farage is with Donald Trump in Mar-a-Lago. Elon Musk is there as well. If you keep it GB News, there's a chance that you might get all of that exclusively for you. Stay tuned.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening. Thanks for joining me for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Mild, misty and murky sums up the weather tomorrow and indeed for the overnight period. High pressure is edging away, but it's still controlling the weather, not just for us, but across most of Europe. In fact, a weak weather front is trying to mix things up a little. That will introduce more cloud and some patchy rain across the far northwest of Scotland. The breeze picking up here as well during this evening. But elsewhere, the winds are pretty light. There's a lot of cloud around. Could be some fog patches, particularly on higher routes, but even at lower levels across parts of the southeast of England, where temperatures will dip down to single figures. Maybe not far off freezing through some parts of northeast Scotland here to start Wednesday, but also here we'll have some brighter skies. Elsewhere, well, brightness hard to find. It's a glum start to Wednesday. Thick cloud, mist, drizzle, murky and misty. Some damp conditions over southwest Scotland, particularly over the hills here. But for many, it'll be a dry start. And although it'll be a bit colder in northeast Scotland, we should also see some sunny spells coming through here. A little bit of rain early on across the far north and northwest of Scotland. So that should tend to edge away. We'll keep some thicker cloud around western coast and hills, so a little bit of drizzle. But for most, it'll just be dry and cloudy. Bit more optimistic for some breaks in the cloud tomorrow. North Wales again, parts of northern England too, and again northern Scotland actually seeing some sunny spells here with a bit of sun. 16, maybe 17 or even 18 Celsius. Even where it's cloudy, temperatures a bit higher than today. Quite mild really, 13 or 14. But I say overall it is fairly great, as it will be again on Thursday. The breeze getting more noticeable through tomorrow and in the west on Thursday. Further east mostly it's light winds, so again just a lot of cloud. Most places dry and temperatures a touch above average. Where we see some sunshine there, those temperatures climbing into the mid-teens. Bye for now.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're giving you the chance to win everything you need to celebrate the festivities. There's £20,000 and £25 in tax-free cash. There's £5,000 to spend on gifts for all the family. There's £500 to spend in your favourite supermarket. And a festively themed GB News goodie bag. We'll get it all to you in time for the big day. For another chance to win, call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB09 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 22nd of November. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Catherine Richards and Jake Singleton-Hill featured on the reality show Love is Blind.
Well, Catherine and Jake are joining us now in the studio for Saturday Morning Live. Thank you very much for joining us. And this is perhaps not the end result that people